What's going on, guys? Jacob Skeppers here, and today I'm going to talk to you about a concept that I have come up with, the Physique Triad. Now, the Physique Triad is simply a way to measure body composition and some other key components inextricably related to the pursuit of aesthetics that many people ignore, and I hope this video today is going to give you a better understanding of how we should approach physique measurement that takes into account the totality of factors and variables that influence how we improve our body composition over time, because it isn't as simple as seeing DEXA scan measurements improve over the course of years or losing scale weight. Like, these are related to one component of physique, but we need to also pay close attention to other areas such as performance in the gym, as well as mindset. And what I feel a lot of individuals and coaches don't understand is how to conceptualize this and how to make sense of measuring performance, measuring mindset and lifestyle, and then obviously measuring aesthetics. So we're gonna go through each of these components now, one by one, and I'm gonna outline how to measure that particular area and then why and how it influences the other two areas. So obviously, let's start with aesthetics. It's pretty obvious, but if you are somebody who's overweight and you want to get leaner, measuring scale weight over time is going to be a useful proxy until you reach a point where your body fat percentage and the rate of fat loss is going to be so slow that we need to start using other metrics to identify and see improvements in the way that we look, such as a DEXA scan, although they can be quite inaccurate, expensive, not a very practical means of getting your body composition assessed, but nonetheless, it's better than nothing. And if you control all variables and the environment and circumstances in which you use these tools, they can be beneficial. But again, the utility of them is limited, and we need to be paying attention to all four of these things pretty much simultaneously, such as girths, so taking measurements, and again, doing it in the same conditions every time, the same spot on your arm, on your bicep, same place around the navel. Progress pictures, same deal. Don't flex and lean forward to get the angles, bruh. Make sure that you're getting them relaxed, same lighting, same time of day, same amount of food in your gut, all those kind of things. So these four things are how I recommend you measure physique, and whether or not you use one or more of them at any given time is going to also depend on you as a person or your client, because using scale weight as a proxy for some people with body image disorders could be problematic, especially if they've got an emotional attachment to numbers, things like that. Similarly, some people might be really uncomfortable getting progress pictures, again related to body image issues. So we need to look at more than just a very esoteric approach and prescription-based approach, but we need to think about how the implementation of these measuring proxies is going to impact the individual using them. So very important consideration, and what we are looking for primarily with these kind of measurements is trends over time. So if over time body fat is coming down, muscle mass is going up, great. But there are going to be large fluctuations and variability in the acute timeframes when we take these measurements, so keep that in mind. Aesthetics, whilst that is where most people pay attention, so a lot of what I've told you just now isn't new information, but most people really only pay attention to this when they're measuring physique. However, this will directly impact your performance, and what's important to note about your aesthetics is that your body composition, and specifically changes in fat mass, are going to be driven primarily through diet. So this is how we are essentially assessing your response to the diet, whereas performance is going to drive hypertrophy, which is muscle growth. So if we only pay attention to this, we're really limiting our ability to maximize body composition and especially muscle growth, because we need the stimulus from training to get that anabolic signaling started, and the generation of all that new tissue, that process to begin, and then nutrition will augment it and further it. So we need to pay attention to our performance, and this isn't just your 1 rep max. If you want to get stronger, then yes, 1 rep max testing on a specific lift is a great way to measure and track over time whether you're improving your strength. But strength is not necessarily going to lead to improvements in how you look, because strength is primarily a neural quality, and whilst getting bigger will get you stronger, and that strength and hypertrophy are not necessarily mutually exclusive, training for strength, whilst beneficial in taking away the focus from aesthetics, we need metrics that are actually going to measure more closely and give a better idea of whether we're building muscle, and that will mean repetition maxes and our work capacity. So by work capacity, I mean improving how many sets you can perform each week. And as you go from a beginner through to an intermediate to advanced, we're going to see this like climb in your work capacity, and then it might taper down as you become a little bit more elite over the years. Repetition maxes, if your repetition maxes are going up over time and there's regular testing for 6RM, 8RM, 10RM, and you're getting better at performing multiple sets in the 6 to 12 rep range and using more weight over time, that's a pretty good proxy for muscle growth. Whereas if we're adding weight to the bar for 1 rep, well, we're getting stronger. We can't necessarily say that we're getting bigger. So again, we need to have some ways to measure this. And that's how I recommend you do it, guys, is by looking at your total number of sets and whether your repetition maxes are going up across multiple sets. Here's a big one. We need pain-free lifting and enjoyment of training. And this needs to be measured, because a lot of people get beat up. And if you are, over time, experiencing less niggles, having more enjoyment and fun in the gym, and you're loving the process, then that is also something that's worth measuring, because that enjoyment factor is going to directly impact our diet and how we look, right? So again, that's just a quick summary about how we can measure performance. And now let's talk about how these two things interplay. I have seen a lot of people, and let's get all anecdotal here, I've seen a lot of people who really struggle to fix up their diet if they aren't training. Simple. When people start training and they make some gains in the gym and they build that confidence, that self-efficacy, and they just start feeling better for training and doing something positive in their day, it has a snowball effect into their diet, and ultimately their aesthetics improve. However, when people focus too much on the aesthetics and they get so hyper-focused on how they're looking, they're very body conscious, and some slight body dysmorphia tendencies can arise, all of a sudden our ability to improve this is going to be extremely limited. And that's when focusing on training and getting stronger and your gym performance can be a great way to shift the focus for people who are extremely body orientated. And this especially holds true at the end of a bodybuilding competition or a dieting phase where people have had a mini cut or an extended cut and need something to focus on outside of what they look like. So the importance of the physique triad is this constant shift between focus whilst never ignoring one component completely, because if we do that, it's very much like juggling. We're going to drop one of the balls and the act's over, right? We need to make sure that all of the things within this triad are continually being monitored, but just a little more so at various time points throughout your training career, depending on your goal and everything like this. Which brings us to the third element of the triad, which is your mindset and your lifestyle. So things like mood, hunger, enjoyment of life, stress, sleep, as well as your habits, behaviors. How they are trending over the course of time. They need to be assessed, they need to be measured, as too does your environment. Taking a photo of your cupboard and then taking another photo 6 months down the track, seeing if there's any change. Have you actually improved the environment that you're in and made your environment conducive to your goals, meaning that you don't have to resist external pressures that could potentially hinder how well you can adhere to your diet and your training? And are you becoming more self-aware over time? And how do we measure this? Well, we can incorporate things like gratitude journals, reflective practices, meditation and these type of things, but most importantly, our self-esteem. So, things that directly affect, how confident we are within ourselves, such as, comparison. And that can obviously come in many ways, shapes and form, very pervasive on, with social media and the high degree of exposure we have to very aesthetic individuals on social media. So these things in your mindset and your lifestyle need to be measured, as does balance. And, when I say balance, very loose term, but the way I like to think about balance is, just understanding how important it is not to make fitness your life unless you are a fitness professional. And even then, you need just some form of balance. It's just going to be a smaller magnitude than somebody who is your regular 9-to-5er doing this for a hobby and to feel and look better and hopefully pick up a few chicks, right? So we need to measure, are we getting a little too lost and caught up in this whole fitness thing? And how do we do that? Again, we need to have some regular checks and balances in place, reflective practices like I mentioned, and we just need to keep an eye on it. There's no hard and fast rules, and it'd be very difficult for me to stand here today, give this presentation and outline, this specific detailed manner in which we need to approach measuring globally our, physique development over, our training career. But the reality is, I don't have the answers, and I don't think that one way will work for everyone, which is why I don't intend on giving hard and fast guidelines as to how often you should weigh, how frequently you should weigh, what metrics you should use to assess mood, things like that. Because some individuals may not even need to assess their mood. They might need to instead assess their, self-awareness, right? Some people may not even need to use progress pictures, but instead are happy with the scale. This concept and idea will apply very differently to different circumstances and contexts, and I'm not going to try and pretend to have an idea as to how it's going to apply to you or your clients. That's for you to figure out. But the goal of this video, which I hope I got across, guys, was to highlight that improving your body composition long-term and measuring physique is not limited to just one facet of physique being aesthetics. And that's the mistake that most people make, is that they neglect or ignore the importance of these, or they simply focus on one of these and they ignore the others. And quick example of that is, in my opinion, a lot of powerlifters focus solely on performance, ignoring their aesthetics, and it limits their progression in their sport. And just like, we could say the yoga crew, yes, they want to get leaner and look better, but the, people who are super mindful into the whole yoga flexibility thing, and that's completely cool too, they get so caught up in this that, they forget about the performance side of things and aesthetics, and then they wonder why they never, improve their body composition, right? So again, I think it's common sense. It is both supported by a lot of scientific research that, performance directly impacts muscle hypertrophy, strength adaptations. We know that. We know that nutrition, interventions with our diet is going to change body composition. However we approach that, that's a different story. And we understand, how psychology, environments, lifestyle factors influence, both performance and aesthetics. Because if our mindset and our lifestyle isn't conducive to rest, recovery, enjoyment, and it's just a very, stressful state that we're in, 24/7, well, that's going to impact our performance. So we need to take care of all of these areas, but again, shifting the priority or the order of importance depending on what you require at any given time. And that's for you to work out, for your coach to work out. But yeah, guys, I'll leave it at that. I hope this was enjoyable. I hope you took something from it. If you did, drop a line down below, like it, and I'll speak to you all next time.